Hi folks, I'm Matt and welcome to My Expanded Universe, a show where I go through the entire EU in chronological order as best I know how. Well folks, it's time to get to the comic books and we're going to say goodbye to a comic book we've been talking about for a long time here. Star Wars Republic, the final issues, 81 through 83, written by John Ostrander. Now in this, it's based off Quinlan Vos shortly after the end events of the Clone Wars where he's trying to avoid Order 66 on the planet Kashyyyk. Now, just like a couple of other stories I've talked about, this is also branching out and talking about things that happen toward and after the end of Clone Wars, like the Imperial Commando book, like the short stories, like Obi-Wan. They had so many stories that came out right after Episode 3, after the events of Episode 3. In fact, I'm still going to talk about one that happened at the end of Clone Wars and branched out into a story on its own. So you have a bunch of stories that happened at the same time, just to different characters in different situations. Now, I put this one here because John Ostrander actually said in the forums once that he considered this not a Clone Wars era comic book, but basically the start and beginning of the Dark Times, and I have to agree with that. Now, I know Star Wars Republic in general was a Clone Wars era comic book, but this one doesn't feel like, this is feeling like it's a goodbye to that. I mean, you could see it as, you know, the end. I think the trade paperback even puts in the Clone Wars at the end or something like that. But when it ended, I didn't even know it was going to end, by the way. I thought the Republic was just going to go ahead. They're going to change it. I thought they should have changed it to Empire, but there was already a comic book out that went by that name, so they couldn't do that. But I thought they should have continued it. They basically rebooted it in another series I'll talk about. But what did I think about this? Well, of course, duh. Did you hear me say Quinlan Vos and John Ostrander? Of course I loved it. Of course it was good. The ending was okay. Ostrander talks about having a different ending, but it got changed by George Lucas. That's right. Once again, we have another example of where George got involved and cared about the expanded universe. Randy Stradley, who was the chief editor of Dark Horse, actually said on the forums that George Lucas was directly responsible for changing the ending to John Ostrander's story. Originally, Ostrander wanted to kill off Vos. You know, he was a man of a different era. In this new era, he felt that Vos just wouldn't fit in. And so he was going to kill him off. Personally, I think I would have liked that better. Now, you're saying, wait a minute, Matt, you've said in the past you were a huge Quinlan Vos fan. Yes, I am. But I agreed again with John Ostrander. I think that he had, you know, he'd had his run. It was time for him to move on and time to see other great heroes rise as other heroes fall. But because George Lucas wanted it differently, John Ostrander changed the story. Now, it's still good. It's still a fine story. But once again, we see proof of George Lucas getting involved. And here's the thing, folks. You hear so many people talk about, and this is even why I started doing my defense of the Expanded Universe videos in the first place, because so many people were saying, oh, George didn't care about the Expanded Universe. I'm going, are you serious? Randy Stradley said it on StarWars.com years ago in the forums. It was actually, I want to say it was also mentioned in a Star Wars Insider, but I can't remember for sure. I want to say John Ostrander talks about the end of the Republic era and talks about how, you know, it got, you know, George Lucas changed the ending. But anyway, George did care about it. He read the comic books. He was a big fan of it. He didn't want Quinlan Vos to die, and so he put a halt on that and said, nope, we're going to change it. We're going to leave it open, because just like the rest of us, we wanted to hear more Quinlan Vos stories, right? Surviving the Order 66 and maybe leading into the Dark Times, which was exciting, kind of left his story open. They didn't do anything else with him after that, but still exciting that he's still around maybe. He could pop up at any moment. I think eventually we may have had a comic book where they would have brought him back. Ostrander was obviously interested in making new characters at this time and developing new storylines, which I was all for. Again, I'm picking John Ostrander's side on this. Sorry, George. But I feel that Star Wars Republic kind of ended abruptly. There wasn't a big, if I remember at my comic book shop, there wasn't a big deal about it ending. It didn't say the final issue or anything like that. And I just remember it was the end, and then they stopped the series. Now, me, I didn't care either way. I was like, well, I'm just going to buy whatever comes out next, which I did. But that is the end of the Republic era and that storyline there. All right, folks, that is all the time I have for now. See you next time with another video.